The sun was setting over the Montana highway when Lisa's legs finally stopped working. She had been walking for 3 days straight, and her body had simply had enough. One moment she was putting one foot in front of the other. The next she was on her knees on the gravel shoulder, gasping for air that wouldn't seem to fill her lungs. Her sneakers were falling apart. The soles had worn so thin she could feel every pebble through them. Her feet were covered in blisters that had popped and formed again. The small backpack on her shoulders contained everything she owned now. 2 changes of clothes, a toothbrush, her phone with a cracked screen that she'd turned off 2 days ago because she was terrified he would track her somehow. Lisa didn't remember making the decision to run. It wasn't like in the movies where someone packs a bag and plans their escape. She had just left. Walked out of her apartment at 3 in the morning while he was asleep, caught the first bus heading north, and then started walking when the bus route ended. She didn't have a destination. She just needed to disappear. The evening air was getting cold. Lisa wrapped her arms around herself and tried to stand, but her legs were shaking too badly. She felt the tears coming and hated herself for it. She had cried so much over the past year that she thought maybe she'd run out of tears. Apparently not. A truck engine rumbled in the distance. Lisa's heart jumped into her throat. Every car that passed made her want to hide, made her check over her shoulder, made her wonder if somehow he had found her. The truck slowed down. Lisa's breathing got faster. She looked around frantically, but there was nowhere to go, just open highway and fields on either side. The truck stopped about 50 feet ahead of her. It was old and dusty, the kind of vehicle that had clearly seen years of hard work. The door opened and someone stepped out. A man. Tall. Lisa's instinct was to run, but her body wouldn't cooperate. She stayed frozen on the ground, every muscle tensed. He walked toward her slowly. He was wearing jeans and boots and a cowboy hat that had seen better days. His face was weathered from sun and wind, probably in his late 30s. He stopped a good distance away and raised both hands slightly like he was approaching a scared animal. "Ma'am, you all right?" His voice was calm and low. Lisa couldn't answer. Her throat felt like it was closing up. "I got some water in the truck if you need it," he continued. He didn't move any closer. "Name's Ben. I work at a ranch about 10 miles up the road. Looks like you've been walking a while." Something about the way he stood there, not crowding her, not demanding anything, made Lisa's defenses crack just a little. "I'm okay," she managed to say, though her voice came out as barely a whisper. "You don't look okay, if you don't mind me saying." Ben tilted his head slightly. "When's the last time you had something to drink?" "It's hot out here." Lisa realized she couldn't remember. Maybe yesterday morning. She had filled up her water bottle at a gas station but had drunk it all by noon. "Let me get you that water," Ben said. He walked back to his truck, moving deliberately so she could see everything he was doing. He pulled out a clean bottle of water and walked back, setting it on the ground a few feet from her before stepping back again. "There you go." Lisa grabbed the bottle and drank half of it in one go. The water was cool, and it made her realize just how thirsty she actually was. "You got somewhere you're trying to get to?" Ben asked gently. Lisa shook her head. That was the truth. She had nowhere to go. No family that would take her in. The friends she used to have had slowly disappeared over the past 2 years. He had made sure of that. Isolated her so completely that when things got really bad, she had no one to call. "You running from something?" Ben's voice was even softer now. The question broke something inside her. Lisa started crying. Really crying, the kind that shakes your whole body. All the fear and exhaustion and shame that she'd been holding inside for so long came pouring out. She couldn't stop it. She didn't even try. Ben didn't move. He didn't try to comfort her or tell her it would be okay. He just stood there and let her cry, which somehow made it easier. When she finally caught her breath, he spoke again. "Listen, I don't know what you're running from and you don't have to tell me, but I can see you need help." He paused. "My grandmother runs a ranch with me. We got a small guest cabin. Nothing fancy, but it's got a bed and a lock on the door. You could rest there tonight. Get a meal. Figure out your next step." Lisa looked up at him. Every instinct screamed at her not to trust anyone, especially not a strange man on an empty highway. But those same instincts had failed her before. They'd told her that her ex-boyfriend loved her, even when he started controlling who she talked to. They'd told her things would get better even as they got worse. "I don't have any money," Lisa said quietly. "Didn't ask for any," Ben replied. "Look, I got a grandmother who'd have my hide if I drove past someone who needed help. You don't have to decide right now. but the sun's going down and it gets real cold out here at night. Lisa thought about another night walking, about the fear every time headlights appeared behind her, about the bone-deep exhaustion that made it hard to think straight. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" she asked. "You don't," Ben said honestly. "But here's what I can do. I can call the ranch right now and you can talk to my grandmother. I can give you the address so you can see it's a real place. And I promise you, ma'am, the only thing I'm offering is a safe place to sleep and some food. Nothing more." He pulled out his phone and made a call, then handed it to Lisa. An elderly woman's voice came through, warm and kind. She told Lisa that yes, they had a guest cabin, and yes, she was welcome to stay as long as she needed, no questions asked. There was something in the woman's voice that reminded Lisa of her own grandmother, who had passed away years ago. Lisa handed the phone back. She looked at Ben, really looked at him. His eyes were steady and clear. There was no pressure in them, no hidden agenda she could see, just genuine concern. "Okay," she whispered. Ben nodded. "Okay, let's get you up." He offered his hand but didn't grab her. Let her decide whether to take it. Lisa hesitated, then reached out. His hand was calloused and strong, and he pulled her to her feet gently. Her legs almost gave out again. Without a word, Ben steadied her, supporting her weight as they walked slowly to the truck. He opened the passenger door and helped her in, then went around to the driver's side. As he started the engine, Ben spoke one more time. "I don't know what you've been through, and like I said, you don't have to tell me, but I want you to know something." He turned to look at her. "You're safe now. I give you my word on that. Whatever you're running from, it doesn't reach you here." Lisa didn't know if she believed him. She didn't know if she could believe anyone anymore. But as the truck started moving down the highway toward the ranch, toward whatever came next, she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Just the smallest flicker of it, barely there but real enough to notice. Hope. The ranch appeared in the headlights like something out of a postcard. A large wooden house with a wraparound porch, a barn that looked older than Lisa could guess, and fields that stretched out into the darkness. Ben pulled the truck up to a small cabin set back from the main house, maybe 100 yards away. "This is the guest cabin," he said, turning off the engine. "Used to be the foreman's place back when the ranch was bigger. Now we mostly use it for family who visit, but nobody's here right now." Lisa looked at the cabin. It was small but well-maintained, with a little porch and flower boxes in the windows. A warm light was already glowing inside. "My grandmother, Ruth, she went ahead and turned on the heat and lights for you," Ben explained. "She'll bring some dinner over in a bit, if that's okay with you." Lisa nodded. She was so tired that everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. Ben helped her out of the truck and walked her to the cabin door. He pulled out a key and handed it to her. "This is yours while you're here. Locks from the inside, too. There's a deadbolt," he pointed to it. "Nobody's got another key, just this one." That detail, the fact that he was giving her the only key, made Lisa's eyes well up again. Ben pretended not to notice. Bathroom's got hot water and towels. There's some basic clothes in the dresser. Might be a bit big, but they're clean. And there's a phone on the nightstand. It's connected to the main house. You need anything at all, you just pick it up and press one. He started to leave, then turned back. "One more thing. You don't have to come out if you don't want to. Ruth will bring meals to the porch. You can just rest. Take all the time you need." With that, Ben walked back to his truck and drove it up to the main house, leaving Lisa alone. She stood on the porch for a long moment, half expecting something to go wrong. But nothing did. Finally, she went inside and locked the door behind her. Then she checked the lock twice. Then a third time. The cabin was simple but cozy. A bed with a thick quilt. A small kitchen area with a table. A bathroom that was tiny but clean. Lisa walked to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror for the first time in days. She barely recognized the person looking back. Her hair was tangled and dirty. Her face was sunburned and streaked with dust. The circles under her eyes were so dark they looked like bruises. She looked like someone who had been running for her life, which she supposed was exactly what she was. Lisa turned on the shower and stepped under the hot water. She stood there for what felt like hours, washing away days of fear and exhaustion. When she finally got out, she found some clothes in the dresser like Ben had said. Soft sweatpants and a flannel shirt that was about 3 sizes too big. They smelled like fresh laundry and sunshine. There was a knock on the door. Lisa froze. Her heart started pounding. "Dear, it's Ruth," came a voice from outside. "I've got some dinner for you." I'll just leave it on the porch. Lisa waited until she heard footsteps walking away before she cracked the door open. On the porch was a tray covered with a cloth. Under it was a plate of pot roast with vegetables, fresh bread, and a slice of apple pie. There was also a thermos of hot tea and a note written in shaky handwriting that said, "Welcome. Rest well." Lisa brought the tray inside and sat at the small table. She couldn't remember the last time she'd had a real meal. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. The food was simple but delicious, the kind of cooking that came from years of practice and love. After eating, Lisa got into bed. The sheets were soft and smelled like lavender. She turned off the light but kept the lamp in the bathroom on with the door cracked, just enough to see by. Old habit. She couldn't sleep in complete darkness anymore. She expected to lie awake like she had for months. Instead, her body finally felt safe enough to let go, and she fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Lisa woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then it all came back. The ranch, Ben, Ruth. She sat up slowly, her body aching from days of walking. There was another tray on the porch. Breakfast this time. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and coffee. The note said, "Take your time." For the next week, Lisa barely left the cabin. She slept. She ate the meals that appeared 3 times a day. She took long showers. She stared out the window at the mountains in the distance. Mostly, she tried to remember what it felt like to be safe. From the cabin window, she could see parts of the ranch. She watched Ben working with horses in a corral near the barn. He moved with a patience and gentleness that surprised her. She watched Ruth hanging laundry on a line, moving slowly but steadily despite her age. Neither of them came to the cabin. They gave her space. On the 8th day, Lisa finally ventured outside. Just to the porch at first. She sat on the steps and felt the sun on her face. It was early September and the air had started to cool, but the afternoons were still warm. Ben was in the corral again, working with a horse. Not riding it, just standing near it, occasionally moving closer and then backing away. The horse was clearly nervous, dancing sideways whenever Ben got too close. "That's Willow," Ruth's voice came from beside the porch. Lisa jumped. She hadn't heard the older woman approach. "Sorry, dear. Didn't mean to startle you." Ruth was holding a basket of vegetables from the garden. She was smaller than Lisa expected, thin and weathered like old wood, but her eyes were sharp and kind. "Willow came to us about 4 months ago," Ruth continued, not seeming to expect Lisa to respond. "Someone had her before who wasn't very nice. Now she's scared of everything. Ben's been working with her every day, just trying to get her to trust again." Lisa watched as Ben stood perfectly still while the horse slowly approached him, then spooked and ran to the other side of the corral. "Takes time," Ruth said softly. "Healing always does. Can't rush it, can't force it. Just have to be patient and keep showing up." Lisa understood that Ruth wasn't just talking about the horse. Over the next few days, Lisa started venturing out more. She walked around the property, always keeping the cabin in sight. She sat on the porch and watched the world go by. She discovered that the ranch had chickens, and one morning she found herself walking over to their coop. Ruth was there collecting eggs. "Morning," she said simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world for Lisa to be there. "Can I help?" The words came out before Lisa could stop them. Ruth smiled. "I'd appreciate that." She showed Lisa how to reach under the hens gently, how to handle the eggs carefully. It was simple work, mindless almost, but Lisa found it calming. She started going to the chicken coop every morning. Then she started helping Ruth with small things, folding laundry, chopping vegetables for dinner, sweeping the porch. Nothing big, nothing that required her to talk much. But each small task felt like proof that her hands could do something other than shake. Ben kept his distance, but he was always visible. Working in the corral, fixing fences, doing whatever needed doing around the ranch. Lisa found his presence comforting rather than threatening. He never pushed, never asked questions, never seemed to want anything from her. One evening, about 3 weeks after she arrived, Lisa was sitting on the porch watching Ben work with Willow. The horse had made progress. She no longer ran away immediately when Ben approached. Ben must have sensed Lisa watching because he called out, not looking directly at her. "She's getting better. Still got a long way to go, but she's getting there." He paused, then continued in that same calm voice. "Funny thing about animals that have been hurt. They want to trust again. That's the thing people don't realize. Deep down, they want to feel safe. They just need time to remember how. Lisa felt tears sliding down her cheeks. Ben never turned around, never acknowledged them. He just kept working with Willow, patient and steady. That night, Lisa picked up the phone in the cabin for the first time. She pressed one like Ben had shown her. "Hello, dear," Ruth answered. "Thank you," Lisa whispered, "for everything. For not asking questions. For the food. For the space." "Oh, honey," Ruth's voice was warm. "You don't need to thank us. We're just glad you're here. Take all the time you need." Lisa hung up and looked out the window at the stars. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she thought maybe, just maybe, she might be okay someday. She wasn't healed. She was still scared. She still flinched at loud noises and checked the locks multiple times, but something had started to shift inside her. Some tiny part of her that had been crushed was beginning to unfold again, like a flower that had been stepped on but wasn't quite dead. It was a start. October came to Montana with golden leaves and crisp mornings. Lisa had been at the ranch for almost 6 weeks and something strange was happening. She was starting to remember who she used to be. It started small. One morning, while helping Ruth in the kitchen, Lisa found herself humming. She stopped immediately, surprised by the sound coming from her own throat. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt light enough to hum. "You have a lovely voice, dear," Ruth said without looking up from the bread dough she was kneading. Lisa hadn't even realized she'd been doing it out loud. "I used to sing," she said quietly. "A long time ago?" "Well, the ranch could use more music," Ruth replied. Lord knows Ben can't carry a tune to save his life. It was such a normal conversation, such an ordinary moment, and yet it felt monumental to Lisa. She was talking about herself, about her past, without that crushing weight of shame that usually came with it. That afternoon, Lisa walked over to the corral where Ben was working with Willow. The horse had made remarkable progress. She now let Ben approach her, even touch her neck sometimes, but she still had moments where something would spook her and she'd panic, running to the far corner of the corral with her ears flat back. "Can I ask you something?" Lisa said from her usual spot by the fence. Ben looked up, surprised. It was the first time Lisa had initiated a conversation with him. "Of course. How do you know when she's ready? When she's actually healing and not just pretending to be okay?" Ben thought about it for a moment. "That's a good question." He walked over to the fence, keeping a respectful distance from Lisa. "I guess you can't always tell right away. Sometimes animals will seem fine on the surface, but they're still carrying all that fear inside. The real test is what happens when something unexpected comes up. That's when you see if the healing is real or if they're just going through the motions." Lisa nodded slowly. She understood what he was really saying. That healing wasn't just about feeling okay when everything was calm and safe. It was about what happened when life threw something at you. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Work with horses that have been hurt, I mean. Wouldn't it be easier to just work with normal ones?" Ben smiled slightly. "Probably. But these horses, they've got so much heart once they remember how to trust again. They've been through something terrible and survived it. That makes them stronger, not weaker. They just need someone to believe in them while they figure that out for themselves." Lisa felt those words settle into her chest. She turned and walked back to the cabin, her mind spinning. That night she made a decision. She turned on her phone for the first time in weeks. Her hands were shaking as the screen lit up. Immediately, notifications started flooding in. Messages, emails, missed calls. Most were from him. Lisa's breathing started to speed up. She wanted to throw the phone across the room. But instead, she forced herself to really look at what he'd sent. The messages started worried. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Then they turned angry. "How could you just leave? You're being ridiculous." Then they became mean. "You're nothing without me. You'll never make it on your own." The last few were threatening. "I'll find you. You can't hide forever." Lisa sat on the edge of the bed staring at the words. And something unexpected happened. Instead of feeling rage, she felt angry. Really, truly angry. She thought about the person she used to be. Before him, she'd been a teacher. A good one. She'd had friends and hobbies and dreams. She'd been happy. And he had systematically taken all of that away from her, piece by piece, until she didn't even recognize herself anymore. The next morning, Lisa walked up to the main house and knocked on the door. Ruth answered, flower on her hands. I need help, Lisa said. Legal help. I need to make sure he can't find me, that he can't hurt me anymore. Ruth didn't ask questions. She just nodded. Ben has a friend who's a lawyer, good man. I'll have Ben give him a call. 2 days later, Lisa sat in a small office in town with Ben sitting quietly in the corner for support. The lawyer, an older man named Tom, listened to her story without judgment. He explained restraining orders, legal protections, what her options were. The most important thing, Tom said gently, is that you're taking control back. That's what this is really about. Not just the legal paperwork, but you deciding that you deserve to be safe. Lisa filled out forms with shaking hands. She had to write down all the things that had happened, all the things she'd tried so hard to forget. Ben never looked at the papers, never asked what she was writing. He just sat there, a steady presence, occasionally getting her water or tissue when she needed it. When it was done, Tom promised to file everything with the court. This is a good first step, he said. You're doing the right thing. On the drive back to the ranch, Lisa was quiet. Ben didn't push her to talk, but as they pulled up to the cabin, she finally spoke. I was a teacher, she said. 5th grade. I loved it. I was good at it, her voice cracked. I don't know if I can ever do it again. Ben turned off the truck and sat back. Can I tell you something? When Willow first got here, I didn't think she'd ever let anyone ride her again. She was that scared, that damaged. But you know what? I was wrong. Last week I put a saddle on her for the first time. She was nervous, but she didn't panic. She trusted me enough to try. He looked at Lisa. I'm not saying it'll be easy, and I'm not saying it'll happen overnight. But just because something bad happened to you doesn't mean you can't have those things back. Being a teacher, having a life, being happy, you're stronger than you think. Lisa felt tears rolling down her face, but this time they weren't tears of fear or shame. They were something else, something that felt almost like relief. Over the next few weeks, something shifted in Lisa. She started doing more around the ranch. She helped Ben repair a fence. She learned how to groom the horses. She even started working with Willow herself, under Ben's guidance. One afternoon, she was in town with Ruth picking up supplies when she saw a help wanted sign in the window of the local library. They needed someone part-time to help with the children's reading program. You should apply, Ruth said, noticing where Lisa was looking. I don't know if I'm ready, Lisa replied. Nobody ever feels ready, dear. Ready is something you become by doing. That evening, Lisa sat at the small table in the cabin with her laptop, one of the few things she'd had in her backpack when Ben found her. She started updating her resume. It felt strange writing down her qualifications, her experience, her skills, like she was describing someone else. But as she typed, something clicked. These weren't just words on a page. This was her. This was what she'd worked for, what she'd built before everything fell apart. And it was still there. He hadn't taken it away. It had just been buried. She submitted her application before she could talk herself out of it. 3 days later, the library called. They wanted to interview her. Lisa almost threw up from nervousness. Ruth lent her some nice clothes for the interview. Ben drove her into town and waited in the truck while she went inside. The interview lasted 30 minutes. The librarian, a kind woman named Dorothy, asked about her teaching experience and her love of books. Lisa found herself relaxing, talking about why she loved reading to kids, how the right book at the right time could change a child's whole world. When can you start? Dorothy asked at the end. Lisa blinked. You mean I got the job? Unless you don't want it? We'd be lucky to have someone with your experience. Lisa walked back to the truck in a daze. When she got in, Ben looked at her with raised eyebrows. I got it, she whispered. Then louder, I got the job. Ben grinned, a real genuine smile that transformed his whole face. Of course you did. On the drive home, Lisa looked out at the Montana landscape rolling by. The mountains in the distance, the endless sky, the fields turning gold in the autumn sun. She thought about how far she'd come from that moment on the highway when she couldn't even stand up. She wasn't all the way healed. She still had nightmares sometimes. She still checked the locks too many times. She still had moments where fear grabbed her throat and wouldn't let go. But she was getting there. Step by step, day by day, with the help of a cowboy who saw her worth when she couldn't, and a grandmother who gave her space to find herself again. The girl who had collapsed on the highway couldn't rise on her own. But the woman she was becoming, she was learning to stand. Lisa's first day at the library was on a Thursday in late October. She woke up 3 times during the night, each time convinced she'd overslept or that it had all been a dream. When her alarm finally went off at 6 in the morning, she was already awake, staring at the ceiling. Ruth had pressed a lunch into her hands that morning along with a thermos of coffee. "You're going to do wonderful," she said firmly. "Those kids are lucky to have you." Ben drove her to town even though Lisa had insisted she could walk. "It's 3 miles, he'd said. "And it's your first day. Let me do this." They rode in comfortable silence until they reached the library. Before Lisa got out, Ben turned to her. "Hey, you've got this. And if you need anything at all, you just call the ranch. I can be here in 10 minutes. Lisa nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She got out of the truck and walked up the library steps, her legs shaking but holding her weight. The morning went better than she expected. Dorothy showed her around, introduced her to the other staff, and explained the children's program. At 11, the first group of kids arrived for story time. 6 children between the ages of 5 and 8, dropped off by parents who worked during the day. Lisa sat in the reading corner. The children gathered around her on colorful cushions and opened the first book. Her hands were trembling so badly she almost dropped it. But then she started reading and something magical happened. Her voice steadied. The words flowed. The children leaned in, captivated. One little girl with pigtails scooted closer. "You read really good," she whispered. Lisa felt something warm bloom in her chest. This was what she'd been missing. This was who she used to be. The days settled into a rhythm. Lisa worked at the library 3 mornings a week. The rest of the time she helped around the ranch. She was getting stronger, both physically and in other ways. She could feel it happening, like something frozen inside her was finally thawing. 2 weeks into her new job, it happened. Lisa was walking out of the library after her shift when she saw him. Her ex was standing across the street, leaning against a car she didn't recognize. He was staring right at her. The world tilted. Lisa's vision narrowed to a tunnel. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might explode. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs had turned to stone. He started walking toward her. Lisa's hand fumbled for her phone in her pocket. She managed to pull it out, her fingers barely working. She pressed Ben's number. It rang once, twice. "Lisa?" Ben's voice came through. "He's here," she whispered. "He found me." "Where are you?" "Outside the library." "Ben, I can't move. I can't. Stay on the phone with me." "I'm coming. I'm 2 minutes away." Her ex was halfway across the street now. He was smiling, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile he used when he was about to say something that would hurt. "Lisa, baby, there you are," he called out. "I've been so worried about you." His voice made her skin crawl. All those memories came flooding back. Every cruel word, every time she'd flinched away from his anger. Every morning she'd woken up wondering how she'd ended up in a life she didn't recognize. "Don't come closer," Lisa said. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. He stopped, looking surprised. "What's wrong with you?" "I drove all this way to find you. To bring you home." "I am home," Lisa said. The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise him. "Don't be ridiculous. You're living on some ranch in the middle of nowhere. That's not a life. Come on, let's talk about this." He took another step forward. Lisa took a step back. "I have a restraining order against you," she said. "You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to contact me." His expression changed. The fake concern vanished, replaced by something cold and hard. "A restraining order? Are you kidding me? After everything I did for you? After I gave you everything?" "You gave me nothing but fear," Lisa said. Her whole body was shaking, but the words kept coming. "You made me afraid of my own shadow. You made me forget who I was. But I remember now." "You think you're so strong now?" His voice turned mean. "You're nothing without me. You're—" A truck pulled up with a screech of brakes. Ben jumped out, leaving the engine running. He positioned himself between Lisa and her ex without saying a word. "Who the hell are you?" her ex demanded. "Doesn't matter who I am," Ben said calmly. "So what matters is that you're violating a court order and you need to leave. Now. This is between me and her. This is none of your business." She's standing behind me, shaking like a leaf. "That makes it my business." Ben pulled out his phone. "Now I can call the sheriff, or you can get back in that car and drive away. Your choice. You've got 10 seconds. Lisa's ex looked at Ben, really looked at him. Ben wasn't a huge man, but he was solid and calm. and there was something in his stance that said he wouldn't back down. More importantly, other people were starting to notice the commotion. Dorothy had come to the library door. A couple of people across the street had stopped to watch. "This isn't over," her ex said to Lisa. "Yeah, it is," Ben replied. 5 seconds. Her ex got back in his car, slammed the door, and drove away too fast. The moment he was gone, Lisa's legs gave out. Ben caught her before she hit the ground and helped her sit on the library steps. "I've got you," he said quietly. "You're okay. He's gone." Dorothy came over with water. Someone else offered to call the police. Ben nodded and gave them the information from the restraining order while Lisa sat there, trying to remember how to breathe. The sheriff arrived 10 minutes later. Lisa had to tell the story again, explain about the restraining order, describe what happened. Ben stayed right beside her the whole time, his presence solid and reassuring. "We'll put out a notice," the sheriff said. "If he comes back into town, we'll pick him up. But ma'am, you did the right thing. You stood up to him." That took guts. On the drive back to the ranch, Lisa couldn't stop shaking. Ben kept glancing over at her, concerned. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "For what?" "For dragging you into this. For putting you in danger. Stop," Ben interrupted gently. "You didn't drag me into anything. You think I'm going to just stand by while someone terrorizes you? That's not who I am. And you're not putting anyone in danger. He's the one who made the choice to show up. He's the one breaking the law." Lisa wiped at her eyes. "I was so scared. When I saw him, I just froze. I couldn't move. But you called for help, and when he talked to you, you told him the truth. You stood your ground. Lisa, do you understand how brave that was? I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway." Ben pulled up to the ranch and turned to face her. "You could have crumbled. You could have gone back to him just to make it stop. But you didn't. You stood there and told him no. When they got inside, Ruth already knew. News traveled fast in a small town." She wrapped Lisa in a hug that somehow made everything feel a little less terrible. That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow looked like him. She finally got out of bed around 2 in the morning and looked out the window. There was a light on in the barn. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and walked out there, her feet crunching on the gravel path. Ben was inside, sitting on a hay bale, drinking coffee from a thermos. He looked up when she came in but didn't seem surprised. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. Lisa shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I see him standing there." "Yeah, that's going to happen for a while." He poured coffee into the thermos cup and offered it to her. "After my dad died, I couldn't sleep in the house for months. I'd come out here instead. Something about being with the horses made it easier." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the horses shifting in their stalls. Finally, Lisa spoke. "Why are you doing this? Really, you don't owe me anything. You don't even know me." Ben was quiet for a long moment. "My mom," he said finally. "She was in a situation like yours. Before I was born. My dad was the one who helped her get out. He gave her a job on this ranch, gave her a safe place to stay. They fell in love later, but that wasn't why he helped her. He helped her because it was the right thing to do." He looked at Lisa. "So when I saw you on that highway, I saw my mom, and I thought about how different my life would have been if nobody had stopped to help her. If nobody had given her a chance to remember who she was." Lisa felt tears running down her face again. "I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me. You just have to keep going. Keep showing up. Keep choosing yourself," he smiled slightly. "Besides, Ruth would kill me if I didn't help someone who needed it. You met her. She's terrifying when she's mad." Lisa laughed through her tears. It felt good to laugh, even after everything that had happened. They sat in the barn until the sun started to rise, not talking much, just being present. And Lisa realized something important. She wasn't alone anymore. She had people who would stand beside her, people who believed she was worth fighting for. He had found her, yes. But he hadn't broken her. Not this time. This time she had stood her ground. This time she had people in her corner. And maybe, just maybe, that made all the difference. Winter arrived in Montana like a whisper that turned into a roar. By December, the ranch was covered in snow, and Lisa had been there for 4 months. 4 months that felt like a lifetime and also like no time at all. Her ex had been arrested for violating the restraining order. He spent a night in jail, paid a fine, and according to Tom, the lawyer, was now under strict orders to stay at least 500 miles away from her. Lisa knew that didn't mean she was completely safe. Paper couldn't stop someone determined enough, but it was something. It was a boundary with consequences. More importantly, Lisa was different now. She wasn't the same woman who had collapsed on the highway. She wasn't even the same woman who had frozen when she saw him outside the library. She was becoming someone new, someone stronger. The library job had turned into something more. Dorothy asked if she'd be interested in running an after-school tutoring program for kids who were struggling with reading. Lisa said yes without hesitation. Within weeks, she had a waiting list. Parents said their children asked to go to the library, which apparently never happened before. One afternoon, a mother pulled Lisa aside after picking up her daughter. "I don't know what you're doing," she said, "but Katie hasn't wanted to read anything in 2 years. Last night, she stayed up past bedtime with a flashlight under her covers reading." "Thank you." Lisa drove back to the ranch that day with tears in her eyes. Good tears. The kind that came from remembering that she was good at something. That she had value beyond what someone else said she was worth. At the ranch, things had shifted too. Lisa had moved out of the guest cabin and into a small apartment above the barn that Ben had helped her fix up. It had been used for storage, but together they'd cleaned it out, painted the walls, and made it into a real home. Small but hers. She paid rent now, insisted on it, even though Ruth had argued. "You work around here enough to earn your keep," Ruth had said. "I know, but I need to do this. I need to pay my own way." Ruth had understood. Sometimes independence wasn't about what made financial sense. It was about what made you feel whole. Lisa had also gotten her driver's license renewed and bought a used car with money she'd saved. It was old and made weird noises, but it was hers. The first time she drove herself to work without depending on anyone else, she cried in the parking lot for 10 minutes. Freedom tasted like salt water and felt like sunshine. Her relationship with Ben had evolved into something she couldn't quite name. They were friends, certainly. Close friends. They worked together around the ranch, had dinner with Ruth most evenings, and spent long hours talking about everything and nothing. But there was something else there too. Something that made Lisa's heart beat faster when he smiled at her. Something that made her notice how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed. Something that both excited and terrified her. One evening in early February, they were in the barn checking on a mare that was close to giving birth. The barn was warm despite the cold outside and peaceful in the way that only barns can be at night. "Can I ask you something?" Lisa said, watching Ben examine the mare. "Always. Why haven't you ever asked me for anything? In all these months, you've given me a place to stay, helped me find work, protected me. You've never asked for anything in return." Ben was quiet for a moment, running his hand along the mare's side. "That's not how this works. You don't help people because you want something back. You help them because they need it. But nobody does that. Not really. Everyone wants something." He looked at her then, really looked at her. "He really did a number on you, didn't he? Made you think that kindness always comes with strings attached." Lisa felt her throat tighten. "Didn't it?" "No," Ben said firmly. "Real kindness is just kindness. It doesn't keep score. It doesn't expect payment." He paused. "Though if we're being honest, you've given me plenty in return. You made this place feel like a home again. You made my grandmother laugh more than she has in years. You work harder than anyone I've ever met. So if we're keeping score, you're ahead." "That's not what I meant," Lisa said softly. "I know what you meant." Ben moved closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. "You're wondering why I've never pushed for more. Why I've kept my distance even though I—" He stopped himself. "You needed a friend. You needed to feel safe. That was more important than anything else." Lisa's heart was pounding. "And now? Now you get to decide what you want, not what someone else wants from you. Not what you think you owe someone. What you actually want." It was the most direct Ben had ever been, and Lisa realized he was giving her something precious. He was giving her choice. Real choice without pressure or expectation. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, "for anything more than this. I'm still figuring out who I am without him. Without the fear." "Then that's your answer," Ben said gently. "And that's okay. I'm not going anywhere. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. And if you're never ready for more than friendship, that's okay too. You don't owe me anything, Lisa. Not a thing." 2 weeks later, the mare gave birth to a healthy foal. Lisa was there when it happened, watching in awe as the tiny creature struggled to stand on wobbly legs. It fell down twice before finally finding its balance, standing on its own 4 feet for the first time. That's the thing about new life, Ruth said, standing beside Lisa. It's messy and hard and sometimes scary, but it's also the most beautiful thing in the world. Watching something find its legs and stand up for the first time. Lisa understood she wasn't just talking about the foal. Spring came slowly to Montana, the snow melting into mud before the first green shoots appeared. Lisa had been at the ranch for almost 9 months. 9 months that had transformed her from someone who couldn't stand on her own into someone who was building an actual life. She had expanded her tutoring program. She had made friends in town. She had started going to a support group for survivors that met once a week at the community center. Hearing other people's stories, sharing her own, had helped her understand that what happened to her wasn't her fault, that she wasn't weak or stupid or any of the things she'd told herself. One Saturday morning, Lisa was working with Willow in the corral. The horse had come so far from the terrified animal that had arrived a year ago. She was calm now, confident, willing to trust. Lisa had been riding her for 2 months, and it was like flying. Ben was watching from the fence, and when Lisa dismounted, he was grinning. "You two look good together." "She's amazing," Lisa said, stroking Willow's neck. "I can't believe how far she's come." "I can," Ben said. She just needed time and someone who believed in her. Lisa looked at him. "We're not talking about the horse anymore, are we?" "Maybe not." They stood there for a moment, and Lisa felt something click into place. She had spent 9 months healing, growing, becoming herself again, and Ben had been there every step of the way, never pushing, never demanding, just being present. She walked over to him and did something she'd thought about for months but had been too scared to do. She reached out and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and calloused and steady. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me when I was invisible, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself, for teaching me that I was worth saving." "You saved yourself," Ben said quietly. "I just gave you a safe place to do it." "Maybe we both did," Lisa replied. That afternoon, Ruth announced she was making Lisa's favorite dinner to celebrate. "Celebrate what?" Lisa asked. "You got your teaching license reinstated. The letter came today." Lisa had applied months ago, going through all the paperwork and requirements to be able to teach in Montana. She'd done it quietly, not sure if anything would come of it, not wanting to jinx it. "I got it?" she whispered. Ruth handed her the envelope with a smile. "You got it. The elementary school called too. They want to interview you for a position starting in the fall." Lisa sat down hard on the porch steps. A real teaching job. A full-time position. It was everything she'd lost. Everything she thought she'd never have again. Ben sat down beside her. "You going to take it?" "I don't know," Lisa said honestly. "A year ago I was so broken I couldn't even stand. And now someone wants to give me a classroom full of kids to teach. What if I'm not ready? What if I mess it up? What if you don't?" Ben countered. "What if you're exactly what those kids need?" That night, Lisa sat in her apartment above the barn and thought about the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the woman on the highway who had nothing left. She thought about the scared person hiding in a cabin, too afraid to face the world. She thought about every small step forward, every moment of courage, every time she chose to keep going even when it was hard. She wasn't that broken woman anymore. She was someone who had been shattered and had put herself back together, piece by piece. The cracks were still there. She still had bad days. She still sometimes checked locks twice or flinched at loud voices. But she was whole now. Differently than before, but maybe even stronger for having been broken and survived it. Lisa picked up her phone and called the elementary school. She scheduled the interview for the following week. Then she walked outside and looked up at the Montana sky, brilliant with stars. A cowboy had carried her when she couldn't walk. A grandmother had given her space to heal. A community had welcomed her when she had nowhere else to go. But in the end, Lisa had learned the most important lesson of all. Safety wasn't just something someone else gave you. It was something you built inside yourself. It was knowing your own worth. It was understanding that you deserved kindness, respect, and love. It was the courage to keep standing even when life tried to knock you down. The broken woman couldn't rise. But the woman she had become, she was already standing tall.